Tonight in 9 News, Kiev under fire. Russia targets the capital in the middle of the night. Families take shelter in Ukraine's subways, others separated as women and children flee the country. A Melbourne couple's desperate dash to reach their premature newborn in the conflict zone. A Berwick schoolteacher accused of preying on one of her students. Striking it rich in Kalgoorlie, 250 residents win big in the massive Powerball draw. And the Magpie faithful head to Morwell as the Pies come out firing against the Hawks.
This is Melbourne's 9 News with Alicia Loxley.
Good evening. The Russian invasion of Ukraine is rapidly spreading like a deadly stain over the country. An attack from the air with war jets and missiles aimed squarely at the capital, Kiev. Tens of thousands of refugees are tonight fleeing the fighting or sheltering in subways and cellars. Europe correspondent Karianne Greenbank leads our coverage.
Missiles rain down on Kiev, Ukraine's capital, under fire in a pre-dawn Russian assault. A 9-storey unit block up in flames. 3 people believed to have been injured after Ukraine's military downed a Russian aircraft. Hours earlier, blasts in the city seen before they're heard. An airstrike offensive signalling full-scale war. This was an airbase in the country's southeast, while flames and what sounds like gunfire reverberates around the city of Sumy in the north. Ukrainians with no choice but to watch from their windows as the attack came from all sides, coming too close to those trying to stay safe in their homes. Thousands scrambled underground. Families packing metro stations along with prams and pets.
We are totally not same as Russians, and we don't want to be a part of Russia or any other country. It's really getting very emotional. And I cannot believe it's happening, really. And I just hope that some people in Russia may see this and just stand against the Putin and the war.
Newborn babies moved from intensive care to a makeshift bomb shelter beneath a children's hospital in eastern Ukraine. Some stayed to survey the damage, managing to survive the deadly blasts. In the northeastern city of Kharkiv, bloodied blankets were left behind in homes with their walls blown out. For those who have fled, it was the most heartbreaking of goodbyes. This father overcome while farewelling his family. It's estimated more than 100,000 people have headed to the borders.
It was unexpected, and we all want peace and quiet. We don't want war. Please, stop, because people suffer from it.
Seeking refuge in Poland.
We definitely will need world's help, and we definitely need to make sure we are all together against this.
As well as Romania and Hungary.
Oh my God, call my mom. Hey, where are you? We're going to Germany. Before that, about that.
This is plan D.
In a late-night national address, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky claiming Russia's plan is to kill him, saying the enemy has marked me as target number 1, my family as target number 2. And desperately calling on NATO for urgent membership. I have asked directly, he says. Everyone is afraid, no one answers. So it's 1:30 in the morning and we have just been warned that the centre of Kiev may be hit with airstrikes in the next couple of hours. So we're just relocating 5 floors down here to this bunker, and this is where we'll be sleeping tonight. Russian forces have taken control of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant and raised their flag over a hydroelectric site in the country's north. But Ukraine is fighting back. President Zelensky declaring martial law and pledging to arm every person willing to defend the country. This video shows a Russian pilot parachuting from his obliterated aircraft close to the capital. Ukraine's military saying it has destroyed Russian tanks and killed soldiers. But the true cost of this crisis is being felt by ordinary citizens.
Carrie-Anne Greenbank reporting there. Well, as thousands flee Ukraine, a Melbourne couple is frantically trying to get in. Jess Van Newton and her husband Kevin are racing to be with their premature baby girl, born via surrogate in an Odessa hospital. She spoke to Dougal Beattie from her hotel in Poland.
Arriving 10 weeks early, baby Alba was born via surrogate in Odessa. Her Australian parents desperate to be with their little daughter.
She's just our world.
Mum Jess and her husband Kevin landed in Poland as war came to Ukraine. All official advice is the journey is too dangerous and to stay put, but the parents are determined to make it to their little girl's bedside.
Just to see her, to let her know that, yeah, Mummy and Daddy are here.
Alba is in the neonatal ward, born prematurely at 28 weeks, weighing 1,500 grams and has a bleed on the brain. Her surrogate mother is recovering nearby.
I believe that there are Russian troops in Odessa, but I don't believe it's very pretty.
The couple travelled from Melbourne to Dubai on Wednesday. They were meant to fly to Odessa, but instead were diverted to Warsaw. Their next move east is uncertain.
Somehow there's got to be a way to get there. I'll swim if I have to.
Then there's a problem of birth certificates and emergency passports, with little help from Australia's Ukrainian embassy after it was temporarily shut down. Jess and Kevin are one of dozens of parents facing the same surrogacy nightmare in Ukraine at the end of a long journey to finally become a mum and dad.
We've had 15 embryo transfers, had a miscarriage, and this baby's just so wanted. And yeah, it's been such a long road to get her. And now she's within arm's reach and I can't get there.
And with little support on the ground, for now, they're on their own.
What do we need? I don't know, prayers. We just need this baby. We just need Alba to be strong.
Dougal Beattie, 9 News.
It's unimaginable, isn't it? All right, political editor Chris Uhlmann is following these developments from Canberra. Chris, there are concerns that this war could have repercussions much closer to home.
Yes, Alicia. Today the Prime Minister lashed out at China for easing trade restrictions against Russia as the West imposes sanctions for the unprovoked attack on Ukraine. The Defence Minister also joined the assault, saying Moscow and Beijing had formed an unholy alliance, and he called on the Chinese president to use his influence to end the war. It's a sign that the government believes a recent pact forged between Russia and China poses a long-term threat to our region.
Australia's political leaders are united in demanding the world exact a toll on Russia for waging war against Ukraine.
There must be a cost, there must be a price, and it must be imposed by the global community.
It's important that the entire world act against this aggression.
Sanctions will be extended beyond Russian banks and officials to its neighbour and ally Belarus, and the Prime Minister wants all sporting links severed.
The F1 should not be held. It should not be held in Russia.
While the target is Moscow, Beijing is also in Canberra's sights for refusing to condemn the invasion.
There's one leader in the world, frankly, who can exert pressure on President Putin, and that is President Xi.
And China has lifted restrictions on Russian wheat imports as the West imposes bans.
You don't go and throw a lifeline to Russia in the middle of a period when they're invading another country.
Vladimir Putin met Xi Jinping during the Winter Olympics, where the two deepened their bonds in a landmark joint statement that said the friendship between the two states has no limits.
China and Russia have entered into this, frankly, unholy alliance.
The Prime Minister has dubbed the axis between Moscow and Beijing a coalition of autocracies that threatens the world.
I've been warning about this for years.
Yesterday, the new Chinese ambassador offered an olive branch to mend the fractured relationship.
China is willing to work with Australia to meet each other halfway.
Last year, the Chinese embassy handed 9 News a list of 14 grievances against Australia. Among them are demands that Australian MPs and its media stop criticising Beijing. The Prime Minister says he's not going to bargain away Australia's freedom.
In terms of meeting halfway, there are 14 points. I don't agree with changing any of them.
There's a hot war in Ukraine and a new Cold War is spreading across the globe. Chris Ullman, 9 News.
All right, let's get the very latest now from Kiev, and Curry-Anne Greenbank is there and joins us live. Curry, Russian troops are currently advancing towards the capital.
Well, they are, Alicia. US officials believe that Russian troops are now just 30 kilometres from Kiev and advancing. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is saying he is now convinced Vladimir Putin is trying to force a change of government, getting rid of the current government and replacing it with a puppet regime. President Zelensky has said he believes Russian special forces are already in Kiev, trying to abduct him and seize power. He is refusing to leave the capital, Alicia, but he well knows if he is captured, he could be killed.
OK, Curry-Anne Greenbank there reporting live from Kiev. Well, around the world there has been a groundswell of protest. As Alison Petrowski reports, brave Russians have taken to the streets, angered at the invasion.
In Vladimir Putin's hometown, St. Petersburg, the president's own people led the protests. The chants of "No more war," the soundtrack to an uprising taking place in more than 40 Russian cities. We believe that conflict must be resolved peacefully without violence from any side. Russian police arresting almost 2,000 anti-war demonstrators as Putin's regime tried to quell dissenting voices. Some clashes turned violent. Arrest Putin, not me, says this protester. This elderly woman detained for a simple sign stating "No war." In Tel Aviv, a Russian citizen burns her passport as rallies around the world waved the blue and yellow bands of Ukraine from London to Tokyo, Finland, Times Square.
Today I think everybody's Ukrainian.
And outside the White House. While inside the East Room,
Putin is the aggressor. Putin chose this war. And now he and his country will bear the consequences.
The US president unveiled sanctions hoping to cripple the foundations of Russia's economy, including cutting off more of Russia's biggest banks, freezing assets and limiting the ability to deal in dollars, pounds, euros and yen.
President Biden said he had no plans to talk to Vladimir Putin and that NATO is now more united and determined than ever.
Germany's chancellor wanting Russian leadership to pay a high price for their aggression.
These are among the darkest hours for Europe since the end of World War II.
He will never be able to cleanse the blood of Ukraine from his hands. And although the UK and our allies tried every avenue for diplomacy until the final hour, I'm driven to conclude that Putin was always determined to attack his neighbour, no matter what we did.
The United Kingdom sanctioning more than 100 Russian individuals and their entities and calling to end Russia's use of SWIFT international payment systems. The Pentagon announcing the deployment of 7,000 more troops in the coming days, not for combat, but to bolster NATO forces, with fears Putin may have eyes on another prize.
He has much larger ambitions in Ukraine. He wants to, in fact, re-establish the former Soviet Union.
As his tanks rolled out in Ukraine, Putin hosted Imran Khan, the first Pakistani Prime Minister to visit Moscow in a quarter of a century. The world watching the response from the West closely, China nursing its own territorial ambitions.
Are you urging China to help isolate Russia?
I'm not prepared to comment on that at the moment.
Beijing has ordered the evacuation of the Chinese embassy in Kiev and urged Chinese citizens still in Ukraine to fly a Chinese flag to protect themselves. China has so far refused to call it an invasion. While Russian state TV claims Ukrainians are happy to be liberated by Russian troops. But on the streets, thousands of Russians bravely and defiantly disagree. In Washington, D.C., Alison Petrowski, 9 News.
OK, let's go to London now, and Brett McLeod, who's at Downing Street. Brett, this is a European conflict of a type we haven't seen since World War II. What's the next step for EU leaders?
I guess, Alicia, they certainly know here what it's like to come under aerial attack from a hostile European neighbour, but many thought that was a relic of the 20th century. Boris Johnson will be joining other NATO leaders in a hookup later this afternoon, but that could come way too late for Kiev, given the way Russian forces are advancing there. A lot of Baltic states, a lot of former Soviet satellites, particularly concerned about Vladimir Putin's next intentions after Ukraine. Alicia?
OK, Brett McLeod, they're live in London. Well, Australians are already feeling the economic sting of the conflict. Oil prices have spiked, with unleaded petrol now above $2 a litre at some Melbourne service stations. Chris O'Keefe tells us wheat products like bread and pasta could be the next to rise.
As Putin declared war, crude oil did what economists feared, hitting $105 a barrel. That means Australians must get ready for bog-standard unleaded petrol to cement itself at $2 a litre.
Australian motorists will continue to be exposed to these record high petrol and diesel prices, which we have now seen consistently since December.
And with Australia importing 90% of the fuel we use, we are completely beholden to the rest of the world. The US could flood the market with oil to drive down prices, but the pinch won't just be at the Bowser. As we start to fly again, airfares will be more expensive, both for domestic and international flights.
There's very little that we can do nationally. These are entirely issues beyond the control of the Australian government.
Russia has already threatened Europe with obscene prices for natural gas, warning of a worldwide shortage. But the Prime Minister says while Australia is happy to help our allies, our gas will be first and foremost for us.
We need to ensure the gas supply in Australia is provided, or people will be paying 4 times what they currently are for gas.
Australia's ability to actually assist Europe with any additional demand is precisely zero. That is because Australia's LNG producers are currently producing the absolute maximum they possibly can.
Ukraine and Russia supply 30% of the world's wheat, feeding billions of people in the form of bread, pasta and packaged foods. Australia is one of the top wheat producers too. We account for 15% of the global market, and with our supply safe, it will be in hot demand.
And I can assure Australians that I won't be doing something that would further impact on the economic issues because of this global conflict.
But a global market means there are global consequences, even in little old Australia. Chris O'Keefe, 9 News.
Victorians with families caught up in the conflict are watching every second, hoping they make it out alive. Liam Ainsworth's wife is sheltering with her mother, desperately searching for a path to safety. Adam Hegarty spoke to him.
In the midst of horror, terror.
We can hear bombing very close to us.
You're watching Irina Ainsworth with her mother in southern Ukraine.
I'm just getting ready to take an emergency shelter.
And heartbreakingly, you're in the same shoes as her husband Liam, watching from their Melbourne home, powerless.
Something being bombed right here. Some stuff in the basement, just some warm clothes, some food.
I immediately became numb and just didn't know how to muster up an emotion and what to feel, other than sheer terror and hoping that, you know, my wife and her family are going to survive.
Oh, that's a missile! That's a missile! That's a missile!
On the ground, another Victorian, photojournalist Bryce Wilson.
All right, we've got to get inside.
He chose to be there. Irina has no choice but to stay.
I know that my wife is currently trying to fill out an immigration form or an application for her mother to be able to try and seek refuge here.
Where Ukrainians and Russians stand side by side.
To see this happening, that my country is the aggressor, it's really heartbreaking.
We're all good people. Our backgrounds are important, but when we have to fight a tyrant, we fight that tyrant together.
That message beamed from Melbourne landmarks, lit up in the yellow and blue of the besieged Ukraine. But from those there and here, a poignant reminder they need real help from the powers who can give it.
Humanitarian support, they need food, they need water, they need shelter. Your thoughts and your well wishes are very much appreciated, but we need more.
And Adam is at Federation Square this evening. Adam, members of the local Ukrainian community are gathering in support there.
Alicia, they certainly are. We're seeing hugs, we're seeing tears and hearing chants of get Putin out and stay with Ukraine. You can see them behind me. Look, we should point out this is quite the modest crowd, if you can believe it, compared to the much larger one that's organised for Sunday officially. It's here at Fed Square marching from Treasury Gardens, but there's a really important reason, important context to that. Impromptu organisers we've spoken to here, sadly, they say Sunday may be too late. They want and need to do something and show their support now. Alicia, as we heard with Liam, these are families who have families sheltering in conflict zones right now.
Absolutely. All right, Adam Hegarty, thank you. Up next for you, the rest of the day's news, including a Berwick schoolteacher accused of preying on a teenage boy. Deadly floods claim another life as the East Coast is swamped. And COVID jabs at home to help boost vaccination rates among children.